John, it is 1 o'clock. It is January 11th, 2024, and it is your first webcast of the year. It is our first webcast of the year. If you're joining us today on Discord, please let us know that you're here by actually posting in the webcast live chat. So that way we can give you credit for once you hit 10 webcasts, what we're keeping track of, you get access to a special channel where we're going to give you a special thing that once we figure it out, you'll get it. So unless you let us know that you're here, we don't know you're here. And if you're not on Discord, we'll figure out something for that. All right, John, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate you all for attending, whether you're attending live or later, or you're on YouTube, you're on LinkedIn. We don't really care. We're just happy that you're here. However you got here is irrelevant. For those of you that don't know, my name is John Strand. I'm the owner of Black Hills Information Security and Anti-Siphon Training, and we do those things that involve hacking and training people. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. But I do want to start talking about cyber deception. I'm doing this thing now where the content community team comes up with the name of a presentation, and then I give that presentation that they think would be interesting. And I do presentations all the time on cyber deception. It's actually, whenever I'm talking to companies that are kind of getting to a moderate to an advanced level of computer security, and they ask, what can we do to really increase our security? I'm like, cyber deception. Cyber deception is where it's at. It's absolutely amazing. And it doesn't have to be stupid, complicated, or expensive to actually get it implemented in your organization. So that's just kind of one of the things that I'm trying desperately to get across in this session, and also in my classes, which, by the way, the cyber deception class is a pay what you can class. So we're not really selling you anything here. And if you're interested, you want to check it out. It's just 2 days, 16 hours, a bunch of really cool cyber deception things that you can implement in your organization in many situations freely and easily. Oh, by the way, speaking of free, it's kind of weird. There's this scene in Madagascar where the animals that escaped from the zoo are in Madagascar, and they save this baby duckling from being attacked by, I think, a snake. And then they take the baby duckling and they gently put it across the pond, like, we just saved this baby duckling. And then it's immediately eaten by like an alligator. It's just, and it's gone. And it's kind of how I feel about cyber deception in the industry. I was teaching classes for Black Hat for a number of years in this area. And it was like, for a couple of years, it was the #1 selling class at Black Hat. And Paul Isidorian and I from Security Weekly started that up. And then Bryce and a whole bunch of other people were part of that process. And it's kind of strange to me how these, like, a lot of vendors kind of enter this space and they immediately start selling products. And I don't have a problem with that, right? It doesn't bother me. People have to make money. You got to come up with these products. But there's a couple of things that are a bit disconcerting to me. Like, some of these vendors are relatively cost effective. They're very, very good. And they're super easy to get set up. And I'm not going to go through into a breakdown of the different vendors. I don't want to do that. But some of the vendors are like way expensive. And it always concerns me because you can totally do cyber deception on the cheap. Like, you can set it up for free in your organization. And seriously, you can pull it off if you have access to Active Directory, if you have access to be able to add accounts, add service accounts, if you have the ability to set these things up, you can set up some really basic cyber deception in less than 15 minutes. And that's going to be kind of what I want to focus on. And I also want to kind of open the conversation up about how we're seeing cyber deception at Black Hills Information Security. We're implementing it. And then I also have some surprise guests that aren't going to be here, like, physically, but we're going to talk about some, like, BHIS sister companies that are implementing these things. And the reason why is it's no longer, cyber deception is like this fringe thing in computer security. And it was for a really, really, really long time. Cyber deception was this concept that, was talked about in some, like, back corners. You would have, be at security conferences and people would say, oh, the only time that you should do cyber deception is when you've done everything else first, which I think is a real garbage argument. Like, if you've patched everything, you have good passwords on everything, you have implemented all your policies, you have a full inventory. At that point, yeah, now you can do cyber deception. And that's just incredibly wrong. Now, the logic behind that was if you're doing cyber deception, then there's things that you are not doing. They look at it as a trade-off, a zero-sum game, where if you're doing deception, then maybe you're not patching, right? If you're doing deception, maybe you're not doing passwords, right? You might be doing those things. Like there's a trade-off that has to exist in order for cyber deception to be implemented in an organization. And honestly, if you go way, way, way back, whenever people were talking about cyber deception, Lance Binster released an amazing book called Honeypots, and you should go and read it. There's a lot of technology in there that is like very deprecated, but Lance is a great way of writing and kind of sharing his views and like conversations about how he was doing these things. And he starts out with a great story of him setting up a honeypot on his kitchen table. And he's got this like desktop that he set up as a honeypot, and he's routing his traffic in, and it gets hacked. And as soon as it gets hacked, he's all super nervous about, well, what should he do? And his knee-jerk reaction is to just unplug it, right? And that was kind of his first foray into like trying to capture attackers. And he started up HoneyNet Alliance and all these different things. Just does amazing, amazing work now with like user awareness and things of that nature. But, you know, when we in the industry started with cyber deception, right? The idea was physical hardware where you would wait for the attackers to actually come in and you would be able to see them attack that particular computer system. Or another example, Marcus Random came up with this tool called Back Officer Friendly. That was a cyber deception, set up a bunch of ports on a system. And if anybody attacked those ports, it would, generate an alert. Kind of one of the very first, like easy to deploy honeypots, had a full GUI implementation and everything. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like this, like I'm old. I'm very, very, very old. I've been doing this for a very, very, very long time. But these technologies has Lance Spinster, Kent Sui, Lance Spinster. You can check it. It's an old book. Somebody can pull that down on Amazon. That would be awesome. Thank you so much. Nailed it. And it's been 87 years. It's been so long. But these technologies always fascinated me, right? And it fascinated me because it was a way that we could actively learn about what attackers are doing and how they're actually doing it. And for a long time, this was threat intelligence, right? So if you're part of the HoneyNet project, you would spend all of these, you would spend all of this time and effort collecting honeypot telemetry, looking at the different attacks, looking at the exploits. And back in the day, we literally detected 0 days by attacks going into different services. We were able to reverse engineer them. And that was awesome, right? That was really, really cool. As cool as that was, it established a baseline understanding of what deception technology was, and it boiled it down to honeypots. And in Lance's book, he refers to them as high interaction honeypots. And these are usually full servers that are stood up to emulate a Windows computer server, a Windows workstation, Windows XP or whatever, and the attacker would attack that. And that would take a tremendous amount of time, a lot of effort to get those things working properly, to watch them. And yeah, your honeypot could totally be compromised, and then it could be used to attack other systems, and that would be bad. And the issue that you ran into when you were looking at this, like in 2002, 2003 timeframe, was, yeah, it was a huge time sink, a lot of effort. And what you got out of that honeypot was predominantly research data, learning about what the attackers are doing and how they're actually doing those different things. And that defined what deception technology was for a long, 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 long time in the industry. I want to say starting in 2009, I might be wrong on that, maybe 2008. Paul and I on Security Weekly, we were like, we've got to revitalize this. Like, deception technology is awesome. And we saw some of our customers starting to implement deception technologies in a way that was what Lance would refer to as a low interaction honeypot. It would be a piece of technology that you could implement, and you didn't have to watch it all the time. It had a very low risk of, being compromised and then being used for the purposes of evil across the rest of the internet. Like literally as a pivot point, there was very, very simple things that the overall risk was reduced. The overall implementation effort was reduced, but the benefits were sky high. And that's really what we started pushing with the Black Hat class. How can you implement these things in such a way that you can implement it very, very, very quickly, very, very, very easily, and get that return on investment almost immediately? And that's what we've been working on ever since. And to be sure, a lot of the vendors that I have on this slide, they're very easy to install. You also have vendors that are like, well, we've got to install our deception agent on this system. And I'm like, that's getting a bit insane. There's easier ways to get these things up and running as well. The other thing that's changed in the past couple of years is MITRE released the MITRE Shield framework, and it was renamed to MITRE Engage. And I kind of want to show this to you all. I got to move my stuff for Zoom over there. So if you look at this, MITRE has released this matrix and has kind of broken things down into expose, affect, elicit, and really kind of getting into, like, if we do network manipulation, make changes to network properties and functions to have a desired effect. And the goal is to basically mess with the attacker's interaction with the network. And that's really, really super cool, right? And they've got references, they have all these different things, which is just really, really cool. They also have setting up lures, right? Deceptive systems artifacts intended to serve as decoys or breadcrumbs to elicit specific response from an adversary. They're intended to elicit a specific response from an adversary. For example, a defender may utilize lures to enable or block the adversary's intended actions and encourage or discourage specific responses. So you're basically funneling that activity that you want that attacker to do to go to something else. Introducing vulnerabilities, API monitoring, and network analysis. And with network analysis, it's, basically like looking at things like Rita and AC Hunter, which we're going to talk about, of course, here just a little bit later. But they have all of these different things. I'm going to share this out in Discord. Somebody said Microsoft Edge. Yeah, I use Microsoft Edge because that's what I use predominantly for all of my work. And what is Edge under the hood, boys and girls? So anyway, yeah, take the bait. I'm giving links out to people. You can totally trust me. And the reason why I think that this is important is traditionally there wasn't an open conversation about a framework of cyber deception techniques that you can implement in your environment in a way that would be kind of pre-thought out by a third-party organization. And what I mean by that is whenever you're looking at any other framework that's out there, right? If you're looking at like, the critical controls, Kelly Tarala, big into that for a long time. And when you're looking at the critical controls, that is a framework where a bunch of experts got together and they said, these are some baseline standards of computer security that we all need to agree upon. And what happens is that starts driving the adoption of those different things, right? It starts driving the adoption of those different tactics for defending a network. And now we have something in the form of MITRE that allows us to kind of talk to management and not have the conversation of, well, we think this is a good idea. Why do you think it's a good idea? Because some crazy webcast that we went to, the guy told a number of fart jokes and then he started talking about it. And we think it's just a good idea because of that. That doesn't really work, right? Did we just give MITRE the hug of death? The BHIS hug of death? I think we did. Oh gosh. If somebody has connections into MITRE, could they pretty please tell MITRE I'm sorry, or tweet it out? If somebody could just tweet out at MITRE, at the Engage people, just tell them we're sorry. We love them, and we hugged them with 1,400 people. I just had 1,400 people DOS the MITRE website. Right. Well, it comes from a place of love. We got to start warning these companies. All right. So we hugged that site to death. Let's see if we can hug other sites to death as well. So we're going to go ahead. Jesus, I hate that. Okay. All right. So yeah, they're good. We like them. Use them later on today when their website comes back up. You just know there's somebody at Cloudflare They're like, we just found the most unusual DDoS attack we've ever seen. It's the most diverse. It actually literally looks like 1,400 people going to the website at the exact same time. Like we've never seen anything like this before. How did that happen? So everybody panicked. And this is an older slide. And I kind of keep it with a number of my classes and things, is the idea that most organizations implement threat intelligence is wrong. That doesn't mean that threat intelligence in and of itself is bad or it's wrong or it's garbage or anything like that. It's just basically the way we think about threat intelligence, and many organizations do, is incorrect. And I want to set up the incorrect way of thinking about threat intelligence. The idea for many organizations is that we're going to buy a bunch of threat intel feeds, and we're going to implement those threat intel feeds into our detective capabilities, and then we're going to detect these attacks. And I hate that. And the reason why I hate that is a lot of the stuff that's in threat intel feeds is very out of date. It's very, very easy things to implement, like IP address or domains or things like that. And that's attackers move those things really, really quickly. Or it's threat intel that's already implemented in things that you're already paying for. Like you're paying for a firewall, you're paying for, let's say, web proxy filtering software, you're paying for endpoint protection products, and they should have that feed data like implemented on them. That's literally what you should do. But the biggest reason why threat intelligence feeds, as far as that implementation scenario, really bothers me, and I know I'm creating a straw person argument around it, is you're buying data that is attacks against somebody else's network, right? You're buying data against somebody else's network, against attacks that may have happened a week ago, a month ago, 2 months ago. And that has limited utility insofar as like, what are the attackers doing in your environment right now? Okay. And if we're looking at, if we can implement cyber deception properly, then it becomes threat intelligence of not about an attack that happened on somebody else's networks, but it becomes threat intelligence on our network right now. Okay. And that is incredibly powerful. And the other thing that this does is as we start implementing cyber deception more and more and more throughout the industry, then we're really kind of dealing with this broken windows analogy. And by the way, the broken windows thing has all kinds of problems with it, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But if attackers know that the stuff that they're interacting with has a heightened chance of being fake or increasing the ability for them to be detected, then the likelihood of them committing a crime goes down. And really, like from like sociology and criminology, like they look at this as like neighborhoods that have broken windows have more crime because criminals see broken windows and they think, wow, there's a whole lot of crime happening here, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of people stopping the crime happening here. Therefore, my risk as a criminal to commit crimes here is lower, so I'm more likely to commit crimes. And this really was implemented like Rudy Giuliani when he was mayor, and there was all kinds of really horrible racial overtones that came into it, and it got ugly really, really quick. But the core psychology of it does in fact make sense. If the overall risk of a perceived risk of committing a crime is low, then the likelihood of somebody committing those crimes is higher, right? So the more that we can implement this, like, hey, you've got a file that you're downloading off of this system, it might have a honey like token in it, and that would directly lead to you, regardless of how many freaking proxies you're going through. And that's going to change the perception of risk for the attackers. 7 proxies. Thank you very much, Steady Sitter. All right. And if we're talking like nation state level activities, right? And I kind of brought this up in the pre-show banter, which by the way, if you weren't present for the pre-show banter, you really should get on the pre-show banter because you won't get the cutting edge fart jokes and knock jokes that we talk about on pre-show. But one of the things that we talked about on pre-show banter is the hot nation state on nation state action that is the iPhone 4 days of Kaspersky, right? There's no question that's a nation state level attack. If you have 4 days and one of those is taking direct advantage of an exploit in something in the hardware that's a debug feature that's only there for developers and there's no applications, that you're talking about a nation state at that point. And when we're talking about nation states in my class, and we're talking about nation states in that particular scenario, you're really talking about an adversary that is like off the charts when it comes to a technical capability. And if you're looking at our security technologies that we purchase, right? We all are generally buying the same vendors of firewalls. We all are buying generally the same vendors of endpoint protection, all of those different things. And the thing I like to ask is, do you seriously think that Russia and China and the NSA and Israel and all of these different groups around the world do not have the capability to bypass CrowdStrike or Windows Defender or Sentinel-1? And I know that there's people that are like listening that are from those vendors, and they're totally like, well, our product is best of breed, and our product, oh, I'm offended that John mentioned our product. And then there's other people here that, well, what do you feel about Sophos? What do you feel about this vendor? What do you feel about that vendor? What do you feel about, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter, folks. Because if you're dealing with the nation state level adversary, there's no question that they have the ability to bypass these products. None. Okay. It just doesn't matter. And the product itself doesn't matter so much. So if we're looking at the firewalls and we're looking at the endpoint protection products, and we're looking at the possibility of the attackers taking advantage of something that's built into the hardware of devices or built into the actual core of the operating system, or as somebody just said, it just went by really, really fast. Everything can be bypassed with enough money. Because like when I'm working with the United States government, that's my favorite attack, right? Like it's the one that works most of the time, and it's called a suitcase full of cash. You go up to somebody, you give them a suitcase, you give them a USB stick and say, plug this in and run this program. Like that's the easiest way. And it's probably cheaper in the long run to be able to do that. So never underestimate the power of that. Now, as I was talking about earlier, I have done hot nation state on nation state action in the past. Okay. In a previous life, that's what I used to do. And when we were doing those types of operations, like one of the big rules that we always talked about is do not get caught. Don't get caught. And there were many times where we would be launching an operation and we would come across something that led us to believe that the adversary that we're going up against had a heightened state of detection capabilities. And the risk of any implants or any exploits or any of these different things that we would be implementing being detected was increased. And inevitably, if you're doing this and you believe that the adversary has a higher chance of detecting what you're going to be dropping on that environment, that is a call that needs to get thrown up the chain. And somebody much higher up the chain in the military will make a call and say, is the operation important enough to take that risk? And it's not just a risk of the operation failing, but it's also the risk of if you're using specific techniques, like, I don't know, 4 iPhone 0 days, those iPhone 0 days cost money. And if there's a heightened risk of detection for those 0 days, what are you going to do? Is it worth the money or is it not? So that's why I find it was really, really, really interesting that they had like hundreds of iPhones that had this malware on it, because that tells me either A, the exploit that they were using, they knew that it had a limited shelf life and it was going to go away. And B, that they had another exploit that they could use to get back in. The idea of this very limited, very expensive 0 day that gives you a specific capability being used, there's no way that somebody in the chain of command, if they're sane, which by the way, that's a whole different conversation at that point, would allow that to be used. They're going to back off and they're going to say, we don't want to get caught because this risk is too high to not just this operation, but future operations down the line. So you don't want to get caught. So if you can implement and you know that your nation states are going to have the capability to bypass all the different security technologies, deception really becomes kind of, unfortunately, one of your last lines of defense for being able to detect them in what they're actually doing. So this is great because this gives you that capability to be able to detect them. And this reason is the reason why my deception classes pay what you can. I would say it's pay what you can because I can't see people paying for it, even though they did at Black Hat and things like that. But I think that deception is such an important technique that needs to be in everyone's security portfolio that I'm literally willing to give this away for free, right? Like, I love the fact that I asked my testers yesterday, hey, send me stories of cyber deception being used that stopped you in your attacks, right? And I got just a ton of reports from my testers, like deception was used by this customer, was used by this customer, was used by this customer. And that's amazing because that's ultimately where we need to be, right? So I want you all to understand, like, if you're interested in this class or not, I'm going to give you the labs where you can run them on your own. It's fine. This stuff is so easy to implement that there's no good reason to not implement it in your environment, preferably by the end of this week. So let's talk about getting started. If you wanted to get into deception and you wanted to just really hit that easy button real hard, okay? Like you just like want to try to prove some value to management. What are some things that you can do? I'm going to throw out a great company, Thinkist. Subt works at Thinkist. Haroon is at Thinkist. These are great, great people. And one of the reasons why I love Thinkist is they're a company that was built right. They were built from the ground up, and they never took huge amounts of VC funding, and their goal was never to be acquired. I love them dearly. I think that they're a great company. Let's see if we can give them a hug of death. So if we go to this website right here, there you go. And you can see all the different tokens that exist right here. So these are all the deception tokens that exist for free, by the way. These are all the tokens that can exist, that you can run for free immediately. All right. You can do webbug URL. You can do a DNS token, AWS keys. Like literally you can go on your GitHub repository, drop some fake AWS keys. And as soon as a hacker tries to use them, same thing with Azure logon certificate, you're going to be able to get an alert immediately of who's trying to do that. Sensitive command token. You can create a registry key that whenever somebody runs a specific command on your workstations, like let's say, who am I? You can create registry keys on Windows computer systems that whenever somebody runs that command, it triggers an action. And in this action, it triggers a web request, I think via PowerShell, that basically says that this command has been triggered, right? Word document. You can drop Word documents that as soon as they're opened, they're pulled back. Now let's talk a little bit about Mark of the Web. If somebody just downloads a Word document from Mark of the Web, immediately macros are not going to fire, right? They're just not, because it has the Mark of the Web associated with it. Lucky for you, two things. First thing is these aren't using macros. Okay, so there's no macros here for Word or Excel. So that Mark of the Web thing doesn't, Mark of the Web, Nick, so whenever you download something from the internet, it kind of watermarks it on your Windows computer system. And it says that this has been downloaded from the web and the macros will not fire. That's because macros were really heavily used all the time with, how am I supposed to work? But when malware is running on a system and it downloads that file via the malware, that file, even if we did use macros, don't have the Mark of the Web on them because they weren't downloaded through the browser. They were downloaded through their implant. Does that make sense? Okay, so just want to make sure that everyone gets that. All right, so that's really, really, really super cool. Really easy to implement. So you can put these and you can call them like passwords.xls, right? Loan information.doc, whatever. But as soon as somebody downloads those files, they're going to fire and it's going to note that somebody is accessing it. Cube config token, WireGuard VPN config, cloned website. I'm going to show you what this looks like at BHIS, but if somebody clones our website, it actually loads in some, let's just do blackhillsinfosec.com. All right. So what it does is you drop this on your website. Okay. So let's say I was going to do this with Black Hills InfoSec, and it says, if this window location is not on a server with a qualified domain name that ends in blackhillsinfosec.com, then and only then it's going to trigger this request to the Canary token website. And it's going to let me know that somebody is cloning my website. Because when an attacker clones an authentication page, they clone that page and they copy all of the HTML and JavaScript with it, and they'll pick this up too. So it's like a Hoover vacuum that pulls up more than what was actually intended. And now you're going to be able to detect your spear phishing attacks before a single spear phish is dropped in. Okay. So that is just really, really super powerful, right? What are some other ones? QR code, MySQL dump, Windows folder, log4shell, redirects, custom image, Adobe Acrobat. You can upload a random executable and it'll backdoor that executable and it'll do a beacon back. SQL Server, SVN, and unique email addresses. This is what Thinkist gives away for free. And in fact, you can go and you can actually look at their documentation and you can actually implement this. They actually have a GitHub repository where you can download and build your own Canary Tokens website. Let me share this with you all right here. There we go. So if you want to implement this, go for it. You can implement it either on their website or you can implement it on your own website. You can do it all. It's just awesome, right? Now, one of the things that I want you to notice here, let me show you something here. Let me do an AWS key. We'll put in my email address like so, do this. That was a mistake. I shouldn't have done the AWS key. But whenever this is invoked, it makes a call back. Let's go back to the JavaScript for the clone website. Right. So I'm creating this token. Do you see anything wrong with this Canary token? Anybody? Like, what do you see here? Like, what do you see as a problem with this Canary token? Yeah, it starts with right here. Literally goes to canarytokens.com. I want you all to remember that. Okay. That's going to be important a little bit later. And you can totally obfuscate this just by clicking this button and it obfuscates it for you. So obfuscation is built in on that. So, but even if you did obfuscate it, you would still see the request for canarytokens.com, right? You would still see that obfuscation. You'd still see that call going back to it. All right. So you get that clone token, you get it set up, and we get these, we have our own Canary token server set up and everything. Once again, huge thanks to Haroon and all the stuff they do for the industry as a whole. And this is what it looks like. It says it's an HTTP request. It gives us the Canary token that fired. What was the website that it fired from? What is the user agent string associated with this? And what is the location for that source IP address as well? So it all just shows up there, which is great. We got a heat map that we've set up. So where are all of the different attacks coming from as far as cloned websites? And this gets into a problem. And this isn't just cloned websites. This is all of our Canary token stuff for password sprays and absolutely everything that we have going out there. And but yeah, you get this heat map of where these attacks are actually coming from. So this isn't refined down. This is like from everything that's out there. You're going to see why it's from the East Coast here in just a second, because we have a problem in the honeypot world. The problem is the companies that do security scorecards. Okay. So it turns out that BHIS was using a lot of Canary tokens and honeypots on the outside of BHIS with our domains. And turns out that the security scorecard companies totally were falling for every single one of those. Like they were hitting our Canary tokens all the time. And our score was bad. It was a bad score. I think we got down to like an F with one vendor or a D with another vendor. And it was because they were crawling all of our honey token websites and all of our different tokens that were all over there. And they're like, these things are all horribly insecure. And we had customers that were looking to do work with Black Hills Information Security. And they would say, yeah, we really want to work with you guys, but your security is abysmal outside of your company. Yeah, they failed us because they failed themselves. And we actually, we've had to pull back the number of external facing Canary tokens that we have out on BHIS. And it sucks because I love them so much, right? Like I love using them all the time. Congratulations, you played yourself, right? But we saw this and we started communicating with some of these companies. And I don't think it was Security Scorecard. I can't remember which vendor it was. I kind of don't dig the whole market. Like this whole space bothers me. And that's a whole nother rant. Hell, what the hell? The reason why this bothers me is the view into an organization and how they come up with your overall scorecard is such a limited view of what makes up the security of a company that I think it's almost irrelevant and stupid at this point. I think the idea sounded good, right? Like what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate a bunch of companies. And if a company wants to do business, we're going to say, hey, here's the overall security for this company. And what it became was an effing racket. Once again, totally not just security scorecard. I just went through and I literally Google searched security scorecard companies. They came up. So I took a picture and I put it there. But hey, if you want to sue me, you can get a hold of me, I guess. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But the reason why it bothers me is it really became extortion in a lot of ways. And the reason why is tons of companies see their scorecard, and security scorecard is like, well, you got to create an account, you got to spend money with us. And it would be a damn shame if your security scorecard score was made public and there was nothing that you could do about it. And that bothers me. I think it started from a good place, and it just kind of devolved from there. One of the things that I wanted to do is get rid of security scorecard companies and just create an open source project that hits all the things that a security scorecard company does, plus some things that might matter. And then, you can generate your own report for a company just with an open source Python tool. Is there? No. Bronwyn, I somewhat disagree. I do think, like, when I first started talking to some of these companies, I think it started in a good place, right? And then it evolved into, they brought in money men, and then the money men just were like, we can make a lot more money if we just scare people. So I know, I know that they're going to end up contacting me on this, but hey, this is just the opinion of one person. Don't take this as legal advice or life advice. So we have implemented like canary tokens, and not just canary tokens, but a bunch of honeypot technology all over the place in Black Hills Information Security SOC. So this is a Kerberosing canary that is fired. It basically fires off an alert, and we get full information about it: host name, username, rule type. And if you notice, it's set to a critical, right? It's set to a critical. And the reason why is whenever you create canary tokens, right? If you're setting up Kerberostable accounts, if you're setting up canary token user accounts, all these different things. And if anybody interacts with that, that is not like a false positive that needs to be investigated. That is absolutely something that has to be hit. You got to look into it immediately. And the other reason why I think that these are so important is one of the things that we've learned over the past couple of years of starting up our own SOC business is SOC technology breaks. Your EDR is going to stop reporting. Your pipeline for the EDR, whatever you're using to basically generate alerts all the way through to a ticketing system, is going to break. Like, you're going to get into these situations all the time where these technology pipelines are going to break. The biggest reason why we see these things break, other than WEFs, which we're going away from them because they're buggy, is simply because we run into situations all the time where parts of a company aren't properly updated or deployed properly, right? Like, it's possible a customer hired us to do SOC services, and then they have this office in Hoboken that Windows Event Forwarder. Sorry, Mick. Mick. Sorry, dude. You totally got me with that, Mick. So yeah, Better Safety Net totally nailed me really quick. I was going to explain to Mick what a WEF is. By the way, Better Safety Net and his company are one of the companies that helped us set up our SOC. So huge props to Mick, and he can give a link to his company. But they're awesome. We work with them on a bunch of things. They're super cool. So shout out to them. But when somebody interacts with this, it absolutely means that something bad has happened. And what this does is it fills a gap. So let's say that Hoboken doesn't get the update. Let's say that Hoboken's EDR is broken. Let's say that Hoboken, they don't actually get the EDR package, and an attacker compromises one of those computer systems, and then they start doing a Kerberosting attack. And this is one of those fallbacks that allow you to detect that. And this is absolutely like saved our ass and our customers' asses a couple of times, where it's like all of a sudden we get this alert from this IP address. And we're like, where is that on the inside of the network? And then they're like, well, we aren't even ingesting anything from that network segment at all. And then the customer, we go through and we investigate it. And then the customer's like, oopsies, we forgot to deploy your software for your SOC on that network segment. But hey, it's a good thing we caught it. So it's really, really just super valuable there. So curb roasting. On the topic of curb roasting, I have a request. That's Canary tokens. Did I already close the link for cred defense? I did. So if somebody is interested in helping out, we created a project a while ago called the Cred Defense Toolkit. And it had a bunch of open source like detection capabilities for detecting curb roasting, for detecting link local multicast name resolution. And it's currently not being maintained. And the reason is Brian was one of the main developers, and he was working on his PhD, which he's coming up to being finished with that. And if you're interested, let us know if you have familiarity with C, C++, and C# and PowerShell. We really, really, really want to get this project up and running again. So just kind of a quick way to say, hey, can we get some free labor? We'd really appreciate some free labor. If you guys could help us with that, that would be awesome. Free labor would be good out there. No, curb roasting is different than the golden ticket attack. They are very, very different. So golden ticket is like once you've achieved domain administrator, you can grant yourself a ticket that never expires. So they are slightly different. All right. And we love adding this. And I should put this in quotes. Actually, I could do that right now. I could do this. I could do, we love, whenever I put that in quotes, does that come across as sarcastic? Like, we love adding this. I don't know if it comes across that way, but I want it to come across that way. I want it to be a little bit sarcastic. I love reading it in our testers' reports. I do. Effective use of traps. Multiple hosts on the domain were installed as traps. Activities conducted by BHIS revealed these traps were vulnerable to multiple insecurities, and they made tempting targets. That's awesome. That is so cool. And, we've got to make this a shirt, right? We love it when testers cry, collect their tears. It makes the best wine. I keep saying, in the world of computer security, especially pen testing, our only goal in life as pen testers is to make our lives harder. That's it. And if we aren't achieving that, if we aren't seeing the industry improve, then we really, really, really are doing better. And that's what we're looking for. So you remember that canary token thing? I don't know if you happen to have noticed this, but like whenever I talked about canary token, I said, hey, there's a problem with this canary token. It literally says canary tokens, right? Like right here. Yeah, it says canary tokens. It's not like vendors would go out of their way to call their tokens straight up canary tokens or an API canary. So this is out of some research that is being done by Matt and Steve and Bo. I don't know, have you all seen Graph Runner? We did a webcast on Graph Runner a little while ago. And if somebody can grab a link for the Graph Runner webcast, that would be super awesome. But we released a new tool that was basically taking advantage of vulnerabilities in Office 365. And if you liked Graph Runner, sit tight. We've been doing some additional research. And as we kept digging in Azure and Office 365, we found a lot more. So go ahead and check out that link to Graph Runner for post-exploitation. Yeah, we won't, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is in Microsoft, but there's like this whole thing that we all use all the time in Microsoft. It's a security train wreck. And we're going to release some updates to Graph Runner probably in the next, I would say in the next couple of weeks. We're opening up a ticket with Microsoft security team to give them an opportunity to respond and to try to fix it. But we fully expect that they're not going to, because they don't have a history of fixing things. Yeah, exactly. Static tear working as intended. You're right. You nailed it. It's Mr. Clippy. Mr. Clippy, you got it. We found a vulnerability in Microsoft Bob in Mr. Clippy. And yeah, you just nailed it. But in some of the research in what we're doing, one of the researchers in our continuous pen testing service, we have a bunch of people that are like doing continuously, constantly breaking into companies over the entire year. And they're doing research and they're working on Graph Runner and updating all those things. And one of the things that he came across was a whole bunch of references to Microsoft using API canaries. They literally called them canaries, like right in the middle of it. When you're looking at the request, it's like, here, this thing is called a canary to basically stop attackers from taking advantage of it. So I think that that's kind of funny. So if you're ever looking at this and you're like, well, no, if you're using canarytokens.org, they're going to totally know what that is. Probably not. Most attackers aren't that observant. Let me put it that way. So here's the deal. I've got an insider at Binary Defense. And I had that insider log into his portal and generate a bunch of screenshots of what Binary Defense has for their canary tokens and what they have. And one of the things, we use it as an integrated, possibly like with our entire ecosystem. So the canary tokens aren't just like standing on their own. They're actually part of a larger ecosystem. And right here, Binary Defense from my insider. We can call him, I don't know. I should give him a nickname, David. How about that? My insider at Binary Defense, David. He was able to send me a screenshot. And one of the things that I absolutely love about Binary Defense, I was talking about all these companies that have showed up recently and they're trying to sell cyber deception as a standalone product. I'm not entirely certain, but I know that cyber deception was built into Binary Defense vision. I think pretty much the first release had all kinds of cyber deception built into it. So it isn't just something that they like bolt onto at the end. It's literally like built into the DNA of Binary Defense and everything that they do. Which I think is very, very, very cool. But I don't want to talk about it too much. I don't want to get my source in trouble. But yeah, if you're looking for really good products, security products, that it's baked into their DNA, you need to look at this because it's really cool. All right, next one, AC Hunter Community Edition, very similar to the way that Binary has set it up. In AC Hunter, we have coupled the idea of network threat hunting with the canary token idea. So you can create registered agents on systems. You can put in mirrored accounts, so like Honey user accounts, and you can also put in files. And AC Hunter, like I said, this is in the free edition out there, is you can create a token and it gives you all the stuff in the zip files to deploy it in an organization. So if anybody ever like opens up these things right here, you get the service that's created, you get the client, you get the instructions to actually set this entire thing up and get it running very, very, very quickly. And as I said, this is a free edition. Like you don't have to pay money for it. So if we go to AC Hunter Community Editions right here, and it's a fully functioning version of AC Hunter. Yeah, Chris Breton is one of the best teachers. I mean, he's the guy who taught me. Don't hold that against him. But no, it's completely for free. Go ahead and run it. We have some amazing things coming down the line for AC Hunter. But I kind of talk about this in RSOC, and I talk about it in Binary Defense, and I discuss it from the perspective that it should never be something that is like standalone. We're going to buy a product. It should be somehow integrated into your ecosystem. And in our ecosystem for our SOC services, it is absolutely baked into our ecosystem. I mean, I've been teaching this stuff for years. For Dave or David, in Binary, it was baked into that ecosystem from the very beginning. If, with AC Hunter, we're incorporating it because this is an enrichment right? So with AC Hunter and the way that we use it, if somebody triggers a token, I want to be able to know, is this IP address actually being used anywhere else? So I can like click on this and I can do a deep dive on it. And that just completely failed on me. And I can get additional details about this different token name and how it was actually utilized. But we want this to be part of an ecosystem, to like feed into other things and not be just its standalone that's out there as well. So just really, really super cool. Check it out. You know, I love companies like Thinkist. I love companies like Binary and Trusted Sec, and what we're doing at AC Hunter, I think is pretty cool too. Final thing that I want to talk about is, if this is interesting to you, I do have a pay what you can class on this coming up. All right. I don't see that. What's there? So with this, we can, what is this? What are they pointing out? Oh, never mind. So I have my intro class labs are available for free to anybody. You can run them. And this is intentional as well. And for deception, we just barely scratched the surface. Like if you like this, I have an entire 2-day, 16-hour class dedicated to it, where we go through spider trap, cowrie, canary tokens, Rita, blue spawn, port spoof, honey badger, shares, users, detecting advanced command and control, web honeypots, file audit. The VM can be found here, right here. So you can download the entire virtual machine from Amazon. You can pull that down and go through this at your leisure, right? So once again, I think that this is so important that we absolutely have to be doing it more across the board. So that's what I got. I had some additional screenshots for password spraying, but I did want to leave, once again, check out the anti-siphon pay what you can classes that I have coming up. I think I have SOC core skills in deception, or is it, I don't know, intro to security and deception, but check those out and get some people out there, get them rolling. All right. So I wanted to leave a few minutes. I got a meeting starting up here in just a little bit. Does anybody have any questions for me? I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pull Discord over so I can see it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. For the feedback. You want to take this class, but it's a lot of work. It's really not 16 hours. So you should check it out, and it's recorded too. So if you take the class for free or you pay, it's up to you. It's going to be recorded so that you can take it at your leisure as well. Cyber deception, same VMs labs as last year. I think I've added in a couple new labs. And we also have a virtual lab. So if you're on a Mac or you have a crappy computer, or you know your corporate policy stops you from running it, I have an unnamed benefactor who is covering the cost of everybody that wants to have a virtualized free cloud instance of the VM for the labs. He's covering the cost for everybody at no charge. He doesn't want to be known yet, who he is, but we really, really do appreciate what he does. And by the way, you know who I'm talking to if you're there as well. All right.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Well done.
Well done.
I mean, always. And for the people who are thinking about taking the training class coming up soon, reminder that when you get to the registration page, there's a button that says tuition assistance. If you click on that, that's where you can register for $0. Otherwise, it's $25 through $5.75. And then I don't want you to feel like it was a bait and switch. You're like, you said it was free. And then you get there and you got to click the tuition assistance button.
Yep. I've got some questions here. TI63R said, do you need a span to feed AC Hunter Community Edition? No, you don't. If you go to the Community Edition website, it actually gives detailed instructions on how to do ARP cache poisoning on your local network with BetterCap to get the traffic into AC Hunter Community Edition without needing a span or a tap. So you can run it at home. That's pretty cool.
And then while John's looking for his next question, many of you participated in what we're calling the Book It program, which means we're keeping track of who attends these webcasts by the way that you engage in the Discord server, which means we go through and we actually tag each and every one of you individually. There's no automation to it. So if you're like, really? Yeah, there is a lot of you. And so if you don't feel like you were tag properly, just go ahead and type in the word book it into the Discord chat now. And I will go through and make sure that you have the
You
password.
alone will go through and make sure. No,
Yeah.
we spent the entire webcast tagging everybody. I think this is that's new for us. We
We
usually,
love that.
yeah.
We
Yeah,
love
so once you hit 10 webcasts with us at Black Hills, not anti-siphon, we're still working on that one. But for the Black Hills Discord and the Black Hills webcast, once you hit 10, you get access to another channel, and then there we'll give you something. We don't know what it is yet. All right, back to you, John. Sorry, I ruined your chat.
Nope, that's fine. Ethereal brought up a great question. It would be a lot to deploy everything in a large environment. Any advice on where to start? By the way, thanks for that setup question. It's great. And I would recommend starting with Honey user accounts. And if you look at the instructions in the cyber deception class, there is a section there on creating a Honey user. Start with that one. That would be the best one that you can do. Oh my gosh, what else? Boy, there's so much.
John, I always ask you the same question when we do cyber deception. What happens when a company implements cyber deception and then that person leaves who knows about the cyber deception? Like
A whole lot of confusion, Jason. Please make sure it's documented, because we've had a number of customers that have seen accounts and stuff that have been created, and they're like, clearly we're hacked. This account is created. There's no user with this account. There's no user with this service. Oh my God, this is a breach. So make sure that it's properly documented in your SIM as well.
And then I have one tip that I love to share whenever I play backdoors and breaches and I get to talk about cyber deception. And it came from a pen tester that I know got caught within 20 minutes of doing the pen test. And this is one of my favorite stories. We're all sitting around hanging out, a bunch of pen testers talking about the times they got caught. And so they said they logged into an organization after scraping the LinkedIn accounts. They found a username, they tried to log in, and they got caught within 20 minutes. And the reason why is because that company had set up a fake employee on LinkedIn. And so anyone who tried to log in using that fake employee's first name and last name, they knew that they had someone that had scraped their LinkedIn account. So talk internally, I don't know what that looks like. You can have AI create that person. You can go through and flesh out their LinkedIn profile. Make sure legal's okay with it. But yeah.
You know what we should do? We should get in contact with, oh God, total brain fart. The guy that did Have I Been Pwned?
Troy.
Troy Hunt. Yes, thank you. We should get together with Troy, and we should incorporate the capability for companies to seed fake user IDs and passwords inside of his data set. And the reason why I think that would be a good idea on the commercial side is if somebody like tries to download those things, or they try to go after the accounts that are listed or something like that, maybe that could be used as a way of like you could add some detective stuff. It'd be difficult to do. It's not straightforward, but it would be neat. So.
Someone mentioned in the chat that we did a pen test for them and we hit their honeypots and they were like, neener. Exactly, right? Like that's the point.
And I am so excited, like when the testers are pissed at me for it. They're like, oh, I wasted like 2 hours on that. I'm like, yes, it's working. It's working.
All right, John, we're wrapping up. So could you please give your final thoughts on this webcast and also do a little vision casting for 2024?
I think 2024 is going to, I'm hoping it's a good year. I think that we're going to continue to have more and more breaches and all that stuff. And I guess we can look at that as a couple of different things. One, yeah, there's more breaches, but it's job security. And I fundamentally believe that things are only fragile till they break, and then they get stronger. We rebuild stronger. You know, all the hurt, all the bad things that you've ever been through in your life make you stronger as a human being. And there's a lot of people that have been through like really shitty things, and it makes you better. And I'd like to think that what we're seeing here in the industry is, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's breaking, but it's going to make us better. It's going to make us wiser. And I do not believe that there's any problem in computer security that cannot be solved with education. Everything can be solved with education. And that education comes from us in these free webcasts, our pay what you can training and anti-siphon, but it also comes in places like Discord and the community that we have here. InfoSec Twitter went down in flames. It's awful. It's just bad. And nothing's really kind of taken its place. And we haven't had a good, safe community. And what we're trying to do is create a safe community where education, sharing of knowledge can be done in a safe place. I do want to caveat that with, if you're an a-hole, we're going to remove you. We'll warn you and say, hey, you're being an a-hole. But if you're arguing with somebody and it becomes ad hominem, if you're arguing with somebody and you're really badgering that person, that's not what we're about here. Here, I want to teach you all how to argue. All right. This is easy. This is super, super, super simple. If you're in the world of computer security and you decide to argue with somebody, you absolutely can argue with someone. And you can do it with love. And I was arguing with one of my friends and we were arguing about Star Trek. I love Orville. The Orville is an amazing show. And I feel like it is the truest successor of Star Trek that is out there today. Right. Let me know if you agree or you disagree with me on that. Just let us know here in Discord. My friend is a huge Star Wars fan or Star Trek fan, huge Star Trek fan. And he hates that take, just hates it. Lower Decks is amazing as well, right? But there's people that hate Lower Decks, right? Because it's funny and it's making fun of Star Trek and it shouldn't be making fun of Star Trek. And we get into a spirited argument and a spirited conversation about Orville versus Star Trek or Lower Decks versus whatever that's out there. We disagree, but I love him like a brother, right? I can walk away from that argument and still absolutely care about that person. And that person can care about me. I'm not arguing to try to tear him down as a human being. We're simply having a disagreement and we can do it in a professional, fun way. And at the end of the day, our opinions really don't matter. It's just a conversation. And from the outside, yeah, it can look like we're giving each other horrendous amounts of shit, but we love each other. And I know that a lot of you have had arguments about music. You know, you've had arguments about science fiction. You've had arguments about all these things. And as a human being, you can argue about those things without hating each other. And that's where we need to be. And that's the level of respect that needs to be here all the time. And with that, I've got to go. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right. See you, John. And for all of you that joined us here today, thank you so much. We have a webcast coming out next week, and then the week after, and 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 the week after. And so what happened is, since you registered, you got added to the mailing list. We do not send emails about services. We do not do that because we know that you will unsubscribe. And if you unsubscribe, then I don't look like I know how to do my job. All right. So we don't want you to do that. And so we're going to send you the next webcast and the next webcast and next webcast. And join us when you can. And when you register at Zoom, you'll have to put that verification code in because it's a security feature. And yay, right? And I think
you can create a Zoom account and just bypass all that, right? You don't have to take the code. Some people don't want to do that. It's fine.
Yeah. We didn't mention this, but if you ever need a pen test, red team, threat hunt, active SOC, GRC, anything that you can imagine, we do this at Black Hills and we'd love to do it for you if you would like to hire us. And if not, keep coming back for the free webcast and improve your own security on your own. And then if one day you need us, you know where to find us. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for engaging in Discord. Discord lasts for forever, so please keep engaging. Deb, do you have something?
We'll do some post show. We'll do like this is the end of the webcast, and we'll do post show because we want to talk about what we're going to be this weekend.
Oh yeah. If you got to go, all right. So the webcast is over. All right.
Woo. Yeah. So we are going to be at ShmooCon this weekend. We are not going to be sponsoring, but we are going to be attending. Jack from Darknet Diaries is going to be there, and he's going to be doing some signing of the comic that we partnered with him. And he'll be at the Trimark booth at 1:00 on Saturday. So if you're at ShmooCon and you want to meet Jack, Darknet Diaries, 1 p.m. Trimark booth, and you can meet us too, and it'll be fun. That's all.
All right.
That's all I want to say.
And Kelly, you got some GRC stuff coming up. We'll work on that and let people know. You got a webcast coming up in a couple weeks. And so if anyone has any GRC, like if you want to learn about GRC, go ahead and put that in the chat so that Kelly can I'll make sure I cover that. And I make sure I cover that. Brian here is from New Zealand. And so if you're ever on Discord and you ask a question and it doesn't get answered, it escalates up to Brian, and Brian makes sure that we make sure that it gets answered by somebody.
We try to.
Root Beer says GRC for life. Kelly, GRC.
If you see us at the lobby at ShmooCon, please say hi.
Please say hi.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'll wear my hat. We're not hard to find.
You're well.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to get there with the weather?
Yeah, we'll make it. What's with the weather? I haven't even checked.
Snow.
It's a snow.
Snow across most of the United States, unless you're in Florida and it's just raining and cloudy.
Yeah. Oh, you
That's
sound
Florida
sad
every
about
day.
that.
Well, everybody,
Aw.
thank you. I think that's it. There's like 650 of you here.
Yeah,
A
do
lot
you
of times
want-
we do post-show banter. We answer questions.
Sure.
It's just John had a meeting, so he had a hard stop.
If you have any questions for us, probably non-technical that we can answer, we would love to answer
Yeah.
your questions. What questions do you have for us, if any?
Oh,
Or you just want to say
yeah,
hi?
I guess people could ask us questions.
Sure, sure. Or
Um,
GRC questions. Kelly could answer that.
That's a big topic right there.
That is. That is.
What would you say GRC is?
So, that's a good question, Jason. And I don't know if you're being sarcastic or authentic, so I'm just going to run with it.
Yes.
So, GRC is guardrails. A lot of times we talk about cyber hygiene and we use the analogy, when you go and you get your teeth cleaned and you go to the hygienist, he or she knows exactly how many times you floss and you brush, and the evidence is there. And we try and do good things, and we try and floss and brush. Well, we should be flossing and brushing every day. And it's just this discipline of doing the right thing over and over again. And even when you go to the dentist, there's a team there. There's the dentist, there's the hygienist, there's the nice person at the front desk. Maybe they give you free toothpaste, toothbrush. But GRC is much like that. We're a team to help make protecting the environment easier. And I know in some organizations, GRC gets kind of a bad rap, or maybe you don't want to talk to those jerks because all they ask about are checklists and check marks. But honestly, we're here to enable technologists to do the good things that technologists do. And sometimes, like we talk a lot, John mentioned running a marathon and standing at the start line of a marathon. And well, you have to know how to train for a marathon. You have to know how long a marathon is. When you're running for 26 miles, it takes some of us close to 5 hours to do that. You need to know when to drink water. You need to know how to get fuel. Well, GRC is kind of like that as well. We provide guardrails and guidelines for the organization, and we don't want technologists to have to implement controls that don't make sense. Like if you're in a smaller company, you don't want to be doing the entire 853 catalog. So I know in some organizations, GRC is adversarial. It's not supposed to be that way. We're really meant to be partners to make the rest of the organization's job easier.
Well done, Kelly.
Yeah,
Well
fantastic
done.
answer.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people who are like, no, GRC stands for Good Reading Content or Guardrails Club.
Oh, I like that. That's
Grudge,
good.
grudgingly reading controls.
When I first started doing GRC, I got a lot of people who were career transitioners from accounting and audit. And, over in that world, there is a very strong sense of black and white. The numbers are this, the numbers are that. And when they transition to GRC careers, I've done a bit of mentoring with them to say, listen, GRC isn't about right or wrong. It's not about black and white. It's about how we can partner up to achieve the business's goals. If it's make more widgets, make more money, build more factories, whatever that organization's goal is. And it's really a lot about relationship building. That was another thing I learned along the way is in GRC talk to pretty much every business unit, if it's accounting, HR, marketing, just to help understand for myself to understand the business a little bit better, but also to help them understand how I can help them. Because believe it or not, if you take a look at, let's say, human resources, they've got restraints. There's employment laws, especially if you're a global organization. There's things you can do in one country, but you can't do in another country. You head over to marketing. We've got laws and regulations about advertising to children online, about cookie consent and all of that sort of stuff. GRC's job is really to empower people to do what they're good at. If it's marketing, if it's HR, if it's technology, we just help guide them along the way.
Well done.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well done.
All right. So everybody, we'll see you next week. We have a double header. We have White Cyberduck is giving one on cryptography, and then right after that, we're talking about the InfoSec Survival Guide. So if you haven't gotten the InfoSec Survival Guide, you'll get an email on Tuesday of next week about these webcasts so that you can register for them. But you'll also have a link to the PDF to read the InfoSec Survival Guide if you like. And we'll probably talk about a way to get a copy for free. But I haven't talked to Justin, our shipping guy, yet, and so I have to do that before
See if we
we
have
do
enough.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we do. But
All right, everyone. That's it. Ryan, kill it with fire, please. Ryan,
it.
kill it.